Caregiving for people with chronic disease is challenging no matter what the illness. One of the unique aspects of caring for somebody with Alzheimer's disease is that caregivers almost always feel guilty in some way. I've come to believe that it's actually the disease itself, Alzheimer's disease, and the kind of care that people need that engenders or causes that guilt in caregivers.
And you have to realize that it's okay to get annoyed because they forget.
Some days I would I want to cry. I remember the day I sat down with him and I took his hand and I said, honey, I'm not doing a very good job. You don't know what I want and I'm getting cross. And now what we have to do is ask God to help us.
Almost every caregiver becomes frustrated or angry at some point when caring for someone with Alzheimer's disease. And I think that that's one of the causes of the high rate of guilt. Because this is almost universal, I think it's important to keep in mind that most of the time, the caregiver is doing a good job.
I was probably more harsh than I should have been initially because I really didn't believe that this could be happening. And so when she would make mistakes or be forgetful, I would think that maybe it was a little bit of an attention-getting thing. And so when she would do that, I would be pretty severe. Mom, you know, come on, let's do it this way. Or Mom, what's wrong with you? And I feel really bad about those things now.
And I would sit in my living room and I would look at the front door and I'd think I would like to go out that door and never come back.
Understanding that it's the disease that's changing the person, that they're not doing things on purpose, and that your frustration and anger is often in response to these changes that the disease is producing, can help people understand and put in perspective the fact that they get angry and therefore feel guilty.
I kept expecting more of him, forgetting that he really couldn't do any better. And sometimes it really upset me when I was making such demands on him. And then I thought, now this is cruel. He doesn't know any better.
But it took a good while for you to be able to understand that.
Took a long while, and I would look back and be ashamed of my actions.
One way to avoid becoming so frustrated and feeling guilty is to have realistic expectations, to understand that disease is changing the person, and that if you can adapt to how they're changing and the fact that they can no longer do things that they did yesterday or last month, can help lessen the likelihood that you'll be frustrated and then lower the likelihood that you'll become guilty or down on yourself. Do you think that something could have been done years ago, in the past, that would have made this an easier adaptation?
I guess the area of trying to force her to do things that she couldn't and that anxiety, I think if I had really listened more and had talked to more people that had explained to me, this is the progression, this is what you can expect, that it would have been easier for me to be kinder sooner.
One of the hardest things to adapt to is that the disease often takes away a person's social graces. People do things that they never would have done before, and that's hard to see.
We went out to dinner recently, and she picked up the meat with her fingers, and my immediate reaction was to look around like, oh my goodness, I can't believe my mother's doing this, because looking at her, you could not tell that she has Alzheimer's. And then I thought, how ridiculous. You know, here I am worried about what people are thinking. I should be worried about my mother, but truthfully, my initial reaction was, what will people think? The first time that something happens, if you act in a way that you're not proud of after, to be able to forgive yourself and say, okay, you know, it's all right, I maybe wasn't the way I should have been, but the next time I will be ready for this. I
think it helps put caregiving in the right context, to help us realize that part of our doing it is coming out of the love, the caring that we have for the ill person. And if we can put aside some of the frustration and guilt and anger, and the love is still there, that the reward of caregiving then can come to the forefront.
I think we just kept trying to stress that it wasn't her fault, and we loved her, and we were going to work with her.
Did she respond to hugs, touching?
Oh,
that
yes.
sort of thing?
And I think they're important to do,
Mm-hmm.
so that she doesn't feel that she's not loved.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's very important that she constantly feels this love surrounding her.